Hey everyone, I'm Mimi with the Transverse, and I'm so excited because I am here for the first time in LA, California, with my awesome friend, Joelle Nunez, and she is very much like me, a non-binary trans femme, and I don't get many of those where I'm from in Minnesota. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk to her about here today. Joelle, thank you so much for making the trip up here and being with me.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have a lot to talk about because I've been following you on TikTok for over a year now. TikTok and Instagram, I want to be clear, and we will share all of our information with you. And can you tell me a little bit about like how you got started in TikTok?
I refused. Like, I did not want to be on TikTok. But I saw that like so many people were getting a lot of organic growth. It's very difficult to get organic growth on Instagram. Like, I was grinding, putting out content, videos, pictures, like you name it. I was doing it on Instagram, but I just wasn't getting engagement. I wasn't getting the organic growth that I wanted, and it was the same thing with YouTube. And that's when I was like, all right, I think I'm going to give TikTok a shot. It was just, there's a lot of organic growth there, so it kind of just took off. I think I'm at like 76,000 followers.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. As somebody who has been trying to grow a social media following for just a number of years now, I've been on YouTube since 2006, my gosh. And I'm so impressed by just how quickly all of your accounts took off. And it's been awesome hanging out with you tonight, by the way, and getting to know you. One of the things I mentioned is that we both identified as non-binary. And that to me is just like so cool and so special. And not enough people really understand like what that means. Some people even like doubt, the non-binary identities. And I just think that's kind of whack. But I want to know from your perspective, do you identify more as a she, her, they, that, like she, they, or a they, she? And can you explain the difference to some who might not understand that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, pronouns do not correlate to gender identity, It's really about what you feel most comfortable and what feels most authentic to you. Personally, I do think that I resonate more with the she, they, just because I do tend to lean more towards femininity, very, very strong feminine center.
Oh, preach, girl. I understand that absolutely. And you know what? I've always considered myself more of a she, they. But there are times, I will admit, there are days, it's like fluid. It's not always the same, right? Some days I do feel more like a they. And my gender expression definitely, I think, signals that. It's very changing on the day-to-day. And I feel like so good and so affirmed and so feminine right now because Joelle gave me like such a great makeover just before this video. She is amazing, folks. I have never loved somebody so much so quickly before. It's real, like the connection and just identifying with somebody so strongly, like it's really truly life-changing, and that's what we're all about here on the Transverse. And I feel like that's what you're all about in your content as well. That's why I was so excited to meet you and get to talk to you. Okay, so I have one more prepared question for you.
Real quick, I want to circle back to the pronouns.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because I did want to express why I still resonate with the they, them pronoun. And that is because I do identify as the label.
Yes!
Technically, I do identify as transgender fluid. But I do have a strong feminine center, and my fluidity tends to vary between non-binary and she. And a lot of people don't understand that because they're like, if you're so feminine, why don't you just identify as a woman? And it's not that simple.
Yes, everybody has the right to express their gender the way that they feel the most comfortable with. And yeah, exactly,
I think it's important to distinguish that gender is how you feel on the inside, while presentation, of course, is how you present yourself. So it's like masculine versus feminine. And then, of course, is your biological sex. And for me, while my presentation is overtly feminine, that doesn't mean that I always feel like a woman. And I'm so tired of society putting these expectations of like what a woman is, what a woman needs. And for me, resonating with that non-binary, gender-fluid label really just allows me to be my most authentic self without worrying about what other people are thinking about me. So I've just found so much empowerment in the non-binary label. So I don't know if that's the same for you.
Oh, you know what? Definitely. It helps me feel better on the day-to-day. And I always go by like a non-binary form of just thinking overall. Oh, have fun with gender, okay? I mean, I think everybody should be able to express themselves the way they live. And never have I been able to express myself more clearly and honestly than after I started to transition.
I feel like if you're a cis person, like by all means, like enjoy that. But I feel like if you haven't at least explored your gender identity, you're missing out.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. Break the binary by all means. I'm in favor of it.
Yes.
I wanted to know though what your kind of experience was like growing up out here in this West Coast environment. Whereas, I mean, I am sure that I had a very different experience in the Midwest, in southern Minnesota, like I did, where I grew up in a far more conservative, religious sort of area.
So you might actually be surprised with this. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in Riverside. Anybody who's familiar with that area knows that it's very like heavily Latino populated. And if you've been part of like Hispanic culture, Latino culture, it's very much centered around gender and societal norms. So while I am on the West Coast, I grew up in a world where I was very deeply thrown into these gender norms. I was constantly told what men are supposed to do, what women are supposed to do. I didn't even know what a trans person was. Like that word wasn't even in my vocabulary, and I wish I had known that. Like, had I just had the education about trans people, I feel like I would have had a way to express myself. But I've spent so many years in my, childhood just like trying to figure out how to express myself because I knew that I did not feel comfortable with like male, with boy, sir, man, whatever you want to refer to it as. I never felt comfortable with those terms. And while I resonated a lot with women, while I resonated a lot with like femininity, like she, her, all of that, I didn't always feel truly comfortable with those labels. And I just wish I'd learned more about trans identities, gender fluidity, non-binary, etc.
That makes me so happy. Okay, you touched on something that I really love, and that is that we lacked this information a decade ago, 20 years ago in some of our cases or more. And that is what the Transverse is all about, is providing that information and that support and that affirmation and that community structure that I wish I had when I was younger. And I'm making content now that reflects that I wish I had this kind of stuff when I was a youth. And now the youth of today and the future will have all of this great gender affirming, identity expressing information that was previously unavailable and unattainable for us. And I feel like we're just kind of able to change the world that way. Maybe that's a little goofy, but
no, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, to any like parents who are watching, like this is why education is so important, because I spent so much of my life not knowing how to express myself. Like I didn't have the tools. So many people talk about, well, I'll teach my child when it comes to it, or like when it comes up. But how are you supposed to know when it comes up if that child does not have the language that they need to express themselves? And even if your child is not trans, whether you like it or not, they will have to navigate a world where trans people do exist.
That's exactly right. We are not by any means recruiting, we are supporting. Because whether you like it or not, you can, stamp out our movement, but there will always be LGBTQ trans identities that spring back up. So it's better to understand them and get along with them than try to say they're wrong and invalid. Maybe that's a controversial take, but I don't think
it is either. I think education is so important, and it doesn't harm kids to just know that trans people exist. And I feel like the like stigma around trans identities, LGBTQ in general, is people like to often correlate it to being an overly sexual topic. But the truth is it just isn't. It's like saying that they're boys who like boys and girls who like girls. That is not sexual at all. Because you've explained to your child already about hetero relationships, about boys who like girls. You're already immersing them into that. If your child is old enough to know that they're a boy or that they are a girl, they're also old enough to learn about other trans identities.
Yes, there's a bit of a binary stigma in our society. I will agree with you on that.
It's just a double standard, you know? If you can learn about straight relationships, you can learn about queer relationships.
Oh, 100%. Joelle, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight and getting to know us. And I really hope I can get you back on a video at some point in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Totally. Everybody, we are sharing Joelle's information and socials down below in the comments and description. And we would love it if you would go ahead and subscribe to the Transverse for more wonderful gender-affirming transgender content. And we will be back with more of that.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Sending love.